Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yinrui. The topic I'm going to cover for today is development of an SM Plus model as an optimization tool for the production of polyoxymethylene dimethyl ethers. OMEs are currently promising fuel substitutes or additives and are attracting more and more attention. The reason behind that is, first, it could be synthesized from sustainable feedstock, which are derived from woody biomass. And moreover, it could significantly reduce the soot formation coming from the incomplete combustion of diesel. The soot is contaminant that has been proved to be both environmentally and physiologically hazardous. However, the production of OME is limited because of its equilibrium reaction nature. Therefore, the optimization of this process becomes significant. However, due to the complexity of the reaction network and the instability of the intermediates, many thermodynamic properties of the components involved in the reaction stays unknown. Therefore, our goal for this study is to develop an SM Plus model to first estimate the missing thermodynamic parameters, and moreover, to predict the equilibrium composition of products and investigate the effect of reaction variables. The estimate requires standard enthalpy and the Gibbs energy of formation as inputs to estimate the other missing thermodynamic parameters, such as heat capacity. We use 3 different methods to estimate the DH and DGs, which are extrapolation, group contribution method, and the combination of thermodynamic law and the literature results. The equilibrium composition will be retrieved from the software, and the equilibrium constant would be calculated based on that. The outcome would be compared with the lab results and literature results to confirm the model's reliability. And the construction of the Aspen model could also be treated as a demonstration of the real batch process. In Aspen, we could define the feed ratio, the reaction temperature, and the reaction pressure, just like what we do in a real experiment. We first compare the result we obtained from the model that implement the extrapolation from existing parameters. And the data are taken from Aspen data bank directly, and only OME chain growth reaction is tested here. From the parity plot, we see that the majority of the data fits the reference line quite well, with only few outliers at the site with high FY to OME1 feed ratio. Additionally, temperature has very limited effect on the OME equilibrium distribution for this part of the reaction. Combination of Hess's law and the literature results is also tested, and for this simulation, the whole reaction network is involved. The cases plotted in the parity plots here involves both varied feed composition and varied reaction temperature. And in general, we see that the data fits the reference line quite good, which means that the Aspen simulation shares good similarity between the literature and experimental results. The maximum discrepancy we found is the methanol and OME122 at here with a maximum of about 7% error. But because we think that the model could produce a satisfactory equilibrium profile, we use it to further investigate the effect of temperature and feed composition. For the temperature, we see a similar trend like the first profile, which means that it still has a limited effect on the equilibrium composition, even though the whole reaction network is involved. However, the feed composition has quite large effect on the product distribution profile. When we add more water into the feed, we see a significant spike in the reactants and the additive in the OME product produced. And as we add in more formaldehyde into the system, the equilibrium shifts to the higher order OMEs. An equilibrium constant test is also run for the second model to further test for its accuracy and reliability. For the KEQ test, hemiformal acetylation reaction and the OME chain growth reaction are calculated and compared to the experimental results. Both Ka and Kg show a consistent trend, but the Kg fit the experimental data very well with only a few outliers, However, the Ka values scatter around the reference line, and it comes from a underestimation towards a overestimation. By observing the governing equation, this result may suggest that there could be some further improvement in the thermodynamic estimation of thermodynamic properties of the hemiformals. In conclusion, the estimate model we use that utilize a combination of Hess's law and literature results could be used to estimate the missing thermodynamic parameters, to predict the equilibrium composition, and to investigate the effect of reaction variables with quite good accuracy. And this outputs from the model could be further implemented in the production and optimization of the OMEs. Finally, I would like to thank the lab mates for their help to make the project possible, and I'm willing to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Judges, please feel free to ask questions.
Greg first.
Go ahead, Charles.
Okay. Yinrui, very interesting work. Okay. So let me understand this. So you use do you use experimental result to verify your model?
Yes, the experimental result from our lab.
Okay. So you also mentioned that there are missing thermodynamic properties. You
Yes.
specifically mentioned that missing heat capacity.
Oh, it's just one of the example of the thermodynamic parameters, and excluding the DH and DGs, they are much more like critical temperature, critical pressure, and all of that. As the Aspen would use the inputs we gave them and use appropriate estimation approach to estimate all the other missing thermodynamic parameters.
So you are sure that is missing some of the properties, including heat capacity. I would believe that those are most fundamental properties, easy to measure type of properties for substance.
Oh yes, that's like for the methanol and formaldehyde, because these species are well studied. But for this intermediate and the higher order OMEs, there's no data accessible at this point. So we need to define them manually in Aspen and to let the software to calculate the other properties. Okay.
So one question, what's the difference between Ka and Kg?
Oh yeah, the Ka is the equilibrium constant for the hemiformal acetylation reaction, and the Kg is for OME chain growth reaction.
Okay, for different reactions. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, an interesting presentation. I'll start with some background question. You mentioned that one of the advantages of using these ethers is to improve combustion efficiency and avoid soot. So why do we care about that?
Yeah, because the soot, it's I think it's one of the cause of the haze, and it's not so good, I think, for the human body, and may incur many respiratory disease. And yeah, if we reduce the soot formation, so it would be quite good for both environmentally and for our human health.
Okay, and you also mentioned an additivity model, the Benson model. Can you explain what that is?
Oh, the Benson model is basically it's additive model, and you retrieve the functional group that each molecule have, and there's a specific value for each functional group, and it's just add them up, and you obtain the enthalpy and the Gibbs energy of that specific molecule.
And what sort of reliability do you need if you want to use a model like that to add it to another model like Aspen to estimate a thermodynamic parameter?
The reliability is kind of to measure the equilibrium profile in a within acceptable error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me try asking it a different way. So
Okay.
you wanted to use heat capacities with Hess's law to correct the enthalpies, and from the enthalpies to use that to get the Gibbs free energies and the equilibrium constants, if I understood the flow. So how wrong would it have been if you hadn't corrected the enthalpies? So if you just assume they were constant over your 100-degree temperature range.
Oh, yeah, for this, I think the Aspen would account for this automatically. So I think that it's not a large issue for this simulation.
Okay, and I'll ask one last question. So which are the largest issues? If you had only had the chance to estimate one of the data, what would it be? So given the uncertainties, or given that we can't know everything, which do you think was the most important thing for you to work out to do this simulation?
Yeah, like the way we test the reliability is just compare with the literature experimental results, and if we see that the model has a large discrepancy, we will just start with another method to estimate the enthalpy and Gibbs energy of formation, and perform the same process again until we reach at the model that we think could produce satisfactory results.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We're about time for questions.
Okay. Thank you again for your presentation.